say action. So this is a demonstration on model building. It is a logical extension of the design process. You recall that we began this project by creating a series of working drawings, front, side, rear, etc., including the first floor and second floor of a model of your choice. I say it's part of the design process because the logical extension would be create the drawings, that'd be the front, rear, first floor, second floor, then create the model if your customer needs it to finalize the sale, because not all customers are familiar with reading drawings. And then somewhere along the design process, somebody, your boss, the customer, is going to approve your drawings, and then they're going to ask you to construct the house. Now, I think we can all agree that creating, even though this model might, in the real world, would cost about $5,000 to $10,000 in real time, and that's made up mainly of a skilled worker's time in actually creating this model. Although we agree that it takes a while and it's a significant cost, compared with the cost of the real thing, which might be in the order of $500,000 to $1 million for a house like this sitting on a lake in the Muskokas, for example, that $5,000 cost for creating the model is insignificant. And sometimes it's necessary to close the deal where a customer really wants to see not just one view of the house, it would be a flat view, which would be shown on the drawings, but also all the little nooks and crannies that you can see from above, and all the different elevations from the front to the sides to the rear, and also some of the landscaping that could be possible over a number of years. This is called surrealistic landscaping. We create this using foam core, but some models are also built with real-life vegetation. This is not the only type of model, by the way. Sometimes people build models like this, which is basically a skeletal model, frame model of a house. We're not going to do that. We're going to be building this model, which is called a presentation model. It's purely for used in small-scale construction. If you were building something like Square One, you wouldn't use this technique. You would use solid core blocks to create that kind of model. So this is the model that we're going to be building, and what I'm going to attempt to do over the next few minutes is show you exactly how we're going to go about constructing it. There's some new equipment that is going to be used during this project. First of all, I'm going to show you this, which is always located in one of the cupboards in room 133. I have two of them available. Although I don't want to, emphasize this too much, this can be a dangerous project because you're working with utility knives and they're extremely sharp. You're also working with a glue gun, which has a temperature on the tip of the glue gun of 180 degrees. It melts skin, basically. You're also working with the bleed-proof paper, which you've already started doing. And the fact that I'm actually doing this demonstration now means that you're close to the end of that project. That's bleed-proof paper, so you're familiar with that. And also utility knives, okay? So the utility knife shown here in its packaging. It has a blade, which I can show here, and the blade is removable. And you can then add separate blades as you require them, or as the original goes dull. What happens with these blades is that because they're so sharp, they also dull up quite easily. So there's a procedure that you can use to ensure that you always have a sharp edge, because you can't build a model unless the knife is absolutely sharp. So I don't know if you can see this, but the knife itself is divided into little serrated edges there. Can you see that, Daniel? Okay, little serrated edges. If you take a set of pliers and grab the knife along that serrated edge and bend, it will just break off. and what will it will expose is the next serrated edge. Okay, so the idea here is that if you want me to put it in empirical terms, you're probably going to be able to use this for maybe 10 actual cuts, and after that it will be too dull to give a nice crisp edge. The next piece of equipment that you're going to be using, of course, is this down here, which is the actual building material. It's called foam core. And we have the foam core in black and white. You're going to be building the actual model out of the white. Foam core is 3/16 of an inch thick, and it's roughly 20 inches deep by, I believe, 30 inches wide. You're going to need probably 2 of these over the period of the 4 to 6 weeks that you're going to be building this model. And you're going to be building the landscaping material out of it. You're also going to be building the model out of it. The roof, on the other hand, which you can see here, can be done 2 ways. You can use, I have black foam core, or you could use the white foam core with hockey tape simulating the shingles, and I'll show you how to do that a little bit later. Also, we need some glues. So this is used for paper glue. This is used basically to transfer your working drawings, as you can see here, to the foam core itself. It's strong enough to do that job. It's called print. Okay, and I always have a couple dozen of these in the what's the word I'm looking for? Cupboards. So they're always in the cupboards. However, when you're building the model, you need a little stronger kind of glue. So that's where this comes in. This is a glue gun. It's easy to use. You probably used it when you were in middle school. The thing to remember is that the tip of this glue gun is extremely hot. It's about almost 200 degrees. It's enough to melt flesh. And every year I have to take somebody to the hospital because they're looking someplace and they're chatting with somebody and this thing is waving around in their hands and they touch somebody. And that's not a good thing. Same with the knife. We have the first aid kit, but every year I have somebody chatting away, not paying attention, and they cut. Now, one of the nice things about the cut that you're going to get from this is although it's extremely deep, it's clean. So it's easy for the doctor to sew you up in the end. It's not a ragged edge. It's really sharp. A knife like this will produce a cut that will go right through to the bone. And I've had several kids, and matter of fact, I had one incident where I had to take 2 of them out at the same time, down to the office, into my car, over to the hospital to get stitched up. So although it looks like a relatively harmless project, it can be dangerous if you're not paying attention. Steel ruler. Okay, so we're going to use a steel ruler. I'll show you how to use this in a minute, but when you're making the model, you're going to run the edge of the knife along the steel ruler to create straight edges. You don't use any other type of ruler, and you certainly don't use the plastic rulers on the drafting arm. That would wreck those. Okay, so let's talk about the first, or how we begin the first step in producing the model. You can see that from the drawings, which I showed you previously, first floor, second floor, and also the front, the rear, and the 2 sides. When you're ready, I'm going to take these and I'm going to photocopy them on 11 by 17 bond paper. I've asked you to keep the drawing, the working drawing, clean and black and white only. Later on, you're going to add some color to the bond paper, but not at this point. When I'm photocopying, I want a black and white image only so that it's nice and crisp. And you can see the first thing that I've done is I've gone over to the cutting board and I've left about a 1/4 inch space all the way around various parts of this model from the working drawings. And you can see that I've only glued down 2 parts of this model. I'm not going to, in this demonstration, I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I'll give you some exposure to how to do these 2 parts. Now the key here is to recognize that although this looks like 2 parts, this contains several parts of the puzzle, which I would call the model. For example, I don't know if you can see this. This part here is one part that has to be cut out. This little triangle here is another part. This part here is inset into the paper and has to be cut out. This part here, which is part of the chimney, has to be cut out. This part here has to be cut out, and the majority of the chimney has to be cut out. That's the other side of the chimney, and even this little part here. The roof itself and the face boards we're not going to utilize, because you can see that if I turn this up on edge, like this, the edge of the foam core itself forms the edge of the roof. And the roofing material is part of another demonstration, which is going to be following this demonstration. About halfway through the building of the model, I will demonstrate how to build the roof. But just know that these face boards here and the roof itself are done using a different technique. It's using the edge of the foam core. Okay, so that's what I did. I cut out those pieces and I glued them down using the paper glue. Oh. So now I'm just going to move this for a second. And let me show you how you do that. Okay, so now it's a simple technique, but it's one that if you don't follow it closely, you can really wreck a model. Wreck meaning that your pieces themselves won't have perfect right angles to them, and you can see that the model has to go together like a dovetail joint, and they have to overlap one another. And if the edges aren't perfect 90 degrees, you're never going to get a really good fit. So you're going to have to practice this, and what I would suggest you do is on some of your foam core, invest some time in just making a series of cuts. Oh, and by the way, just 1 second. Anytime you're making a cut, you don't make it on the foam core without placing a cutting board down on the desk. If you miss that little step, the first time you go to cut something, you can see it's going to go right through to the desktop, and you're going to be cutting the desktop. So you want to make sure that you understand that the cutting board is a vital part of this. I also have different types of cutting boards. If you don't like using that kind, a lot of people will like this kind here, which also has, as you can see, a segregated pattern here, which you can use to your advantage sometimes in measuring things. So regardless of what type of cutting board you use, the next step is, well, I'll put this up here. The next step is similar. Okay, so once you have practiced, and usually what I do to practice, I will take my mechanical pencils and I'll make a series of straight lines, parallel lines, and I'll practice cutting out these lines and observing the edge. Because if the edge isn't straight, you're not ready to start on the model. I'm more than happy to rephotocopy these things for you, so it's not like the world's going to come to an end if you make a raggedy mess out of your first attempt. But still, you should practice before you start. Okay, here's the basic technique. Let's say I wanted to cut this line here. What I do is I place my steel ruler along that line, and the closer you come and the more accurate you come, the better your model is going to fit. Now here's the key. You want to plunge your knife not on the model part, but away from the model part. So let's say maybe an inch or two further out, and you want to hold it straight up and down. So it's like this, not canted left or right. So you want to plunge the knife right into the end, right into the bottom, until you can feel the cutting board. And then simply pull straight back, like this. And that should theoretically allow you, if you held it straight up and down, theoretically that should allow you to create a pretty straight line. And then you move to the next one, which is here. Again, away from the part that you're cutting. So by the time it gets to that part, it's straight up and down. Pull it straight back. And then I need this part here. Plunge it in away. pull it straight back. And then the final one, which looks like it's right here. You don't have to worry about cutting into the roof because we're not building this roof. And then theoretically, this should come right out. As normally happens when I'm doing a demonstration, it doesn't. But that's okay. So then you just have to go over them again, observing the same three-part process. Pull straight back, plunge the knife in. Okay, so now, if I've done this correctly, and this line here still needs a little work. If I have done this correctly, I should be looking at a part that has pretty uniform edges. Okay, let's take a look at this edge, for example. And you know what? I'm going to have to redo this because I didn't do a very good job on this. For some reason, this particular knife is not straight or not sharp enough at this edge. Whether or not it's been used at the factory or they didn't do a good job. But you can see that the edge itself is a bit on the raggedy side. So we're going to try it one more time. I'm going to take this knife out, place it over here. I'm going to take another knife, which is from an unopened package. I'm going to slip it back in here like this. And I should be good to go with a different knife. I'm only doing this in the interest of time. What I would have done with this one that I found defective, I would have tried first of all to break off a couple of pieces at the end to make it sharp. Okay, let me try this again. All right, here we go. I'm gonna start on this one here, just in the interest of time. Okay, let me try this now. And the other thing you want to observe is that you notice how I'm continually turning the piece of foam core. You always want to be pulling back towards you. You don't want to be pulling away from you because that becomes dangerous. And of course you always want to make sure that your knife is in there tight so that you can pull it along in a straight line. Okay, I have one more cut here. This one, and then this thing should theoretically fall out. All right. I can tell right off the bat this one's going to be better. Now, if you take a look at this, there are two things you'll notice. First of all, that the part at the corner forms almost a perfect right angle. Not perfect, but it's pretty close to being perfect. All the edges are clean. There's none of that, if you can look at the edge now and compare it with the edge that I just did prior to that. This is the raggedy one, this is the clean one. Do you see the difference? How's that coming out, Daniel? Can you see it? Okay, so this one here is what I would call a pretty good piece that will adhere to the glue and will also adhere to the next part in line. So, after you're finished cutting out all the pieces on these two, you glue down the next part, maybe it's the side of the house, and you proceed again to do the same thing again and again and again. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. This is design itself, and model building is not the kind of profession for a perfectionist. You will make mistakes. You will also probably discover that the working drawings that you work so hard on, sometimes they're not adequate. We're going to have to make what's called a field modification. This always happens in real life, millions of times every day. There are carpenters out there who are cursing the guys at head office who did the drawings because when they get the drawings to the field, it doesn't fit. Okay, so that's the basic premise and technique for creating the cut and construction for the model. In a future demonstration, I'm going to show you how to create the roof. You see, this one is a fairly complicated model. It has several different roof lines. So I'll show you how to create the basic technique for the roof, and also the technique for creating a pleasing and functional landscape. Done.